happy Wednesday evening, happy One Step Workshop Day, because yes, this is our monthly free workshop. And as ever, I'm doing a topic that has been voted for by you guys here in the group. So excited to be talking to you this evening. I don't know about you, but the weather's been amazing here in the UK. I don't want to keep you too long in case you have, gardens to sit in, terraces, balconies to enjoy in the sunshine. So we'll keep it to about half an hour today, but I really want to make sure I answer any of your questions, of course. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through, of course, the key points I want to share with you, give a few examples, but then I'll make sure there's time for questions for those of you watching live. Massive hello to those of you who are watching replay as well. Do say hello when you come on, whether you're live or if you're on the replay. I'd love to hear who's with me today, and even if you are watching the replay, you can comment, you can ask questions, make sure you tag me, and then I'll make sure that I come back and answer in the next couple of days. Hi Amanda, great to see you, really glad you could join us. I haven't spoken to you since a few weeks ago, since we were doing the escape plan workshop, so really good to see you. Parisha as well, just chatting with you today, so really great you can make it. I can see a few of you joining, so I'll give you a few more minutes. How are you guys doing? My goodness. Time flies, doesn't it? We've been a couple of months here on the lockdown in England. Things are easing up a bit. To be honest, when I'm out in the park, it looks pretty normal, or almost busier than normal, because there are no pubs and restaurants open. So everybody's sitting outside on the common and in the parks, enjoying the lovely weather. So bit of a strange time still for everybody. Hope you're staying safe, staying well, staying alert, as the expression goes here in the UK now. And I hope you're, getting on with things, whatever that looks like for you. We talk about this new normal. I don't know what that looks like. It's, as somebody said, I think on LinkedIn, I saw, we're all going through the same storm, but we're not necessarily in the same boat. This pandemic is affecting us all, both health-wise, personally and professionally, in very different ways. It's having massive global impact, very unexpected, unprecedented. And for some, it's maybe more or less business as usual. For some industries, obviously hospitality, construction, education, I read, is one of the worst hit. Not to mention those of you who now have your kids at home. And certainly if anyone has had yours or your family's health affected, of course, that's the worst of all. So, really challenging times, but I'm happy that you guys are joining. Hello, Gina, great that you could join live as well. Obviously, coming on live is the best way to be able to ask your questions, bounce off each other, have that energy of the live session. Again, I'll try to keep it to about half an hour, but if you know me by now, I tend to go on. I tend to try to give you guys as much content, as much value as possible. So apologies if I keep going, but I will get started. And of course, as we go, in fact, already now, if you have any questions you want to make sure that I cover right away, then do bung them into the comments already, into the chat, because that will help me to make sure I pick those up either right away or at the relevant time during the session. So if you don't know me by now, if you're new to the group, I think most people here are familiar faces. My name is Anna Lundberg. I'm the founder of One Step Outside, and I work with experienced professionals who are looking to transition out of their jobs into setting up on their own, as well as people who are a bit further along, who already have that business, who are looking to really get what they wanted out of it, to grow and to achieve their goals. I hope the signal is okay. I'm looking a bit, in terms of the video I'm seeing, it looks a bit delayed. So fingers crossed the tech gods are with us. Shannon, really lovely to see you. Really glad you could join us this evening as well. So the topic that was voted for this month is how to invest in your business when you maybe don't have a lot of money. Now, this is such a big topic, and I imagine that's, why so many people were asking this. I do want to say that I did a training a few months ago, and I'll link to that below after the session, on how to start a business with little budget. And I think that one will be really relevant too. So that will be sort of background, and I think that will cover a lot of similar points. But at least for me, and I think Sylvia, who initially gave the specific question, was talking about how do you balance the need, the desire to invest in yourself, to really recognize that, what, this is a business, this is something I care about, that I really want to take all the way, to take seriously, to take as a business on the one hand, with the fact that maybe you don't have a lot of income. Perhaps you do still have your steady income from your job, but you don't yet have the additional income from the business. Or maybe you really are just sort of on borrowed time, living off your savings, and you don't yet have more than a couple of clients. And so the idea of investing in advertising and coaches and training and courses and software and tools and teams and all these things feels a long way off. So that's what I'm going to try to sort of get to grips with this evening. Again, if you have specific questions around this, I'd love to hear from you. What I'm going to do is talk through a little bit of sort of top tips, I guess, And then, as I said, let's dig into some concrete examples. And if you have any that you'd like to share and we can work through, then I'd love to answer those as well. But the first one is, and in fact, before I even say the first one, the first point I think I want to make is that any business is going to take time and money and energy. And in particular, I guess during this current climate, if you're feeling tempted to pivot or to desperately launch something totally different or new and so on, just bear in mind that you've done the due diligence, that you really think this is something that I love, that I'm going to be good at, that I'm going to enjoy doing, and that I want to work on for the foreseeable future. Because again, any business is going to take time and energy. And I often hear people say, oh, someone said I should set up a VA business or I should do this because it's easy. But that's not really very helpful, because who says it's easy? First of all, I think no business is easy to get off the ground if you've tried that before. And in any case, it really needs to be designed, and we talk about this before, your ikigai, designed around the skills you have, the interests, your passions, and of course, something that's actually going to bring you money. So I just want to say, make sure whatever business you're doing, that it's not just something that you're thinking, oh, I'll just do this until. Because really, I would recommend that if possible, you take the time then to really think about, hang on, what is it I truly want to do? And then maybe it'll take you a bit longer, but then at least you're laying the foundations, you're growing something that you're going to be really happy with, that's going to bring you that meaningful satisfaction. So my first tip to you is to use what you already have. And so that might be resources. So it might be, let's say, and obviously we're all doing this right now, but working from home rather than renting a space. It also means less tangibly that you're using skills you already have versus necessarily investing in lots of new courses and things. I talked to someone earlier today who's becoming a coach, and she's got fantastic foundations already, lots of experience sort of indirectly of coaching. She already has a couple of frameworks and models. She has her natural intuitive sense of coaching, and she's been doing a great job with coaching so far. And she came to me and said, look, I feel like I need all these extra models and I need to do more courses. And in fact, she is doing quite a few courses at the moment. And if you know me at all, I'm all for lifelong learning and investing in courses and coaches and programs and so on. But again, if we're talking about we don't have a lot of money now, we're just starting out, really think about, what do you already have? What are your existing qualifications that you can really bolster and leverage on your LinkedIn profile, in the content you put out? What are the skills that you have now? So don't wait for, that formal qualification and course that takes 3 years, 5 years, whatever. What do you already have now? So skills, resources, physical things, right? I have a friend here in the group, Serena, who started a bakery business at home. Initially literally just baking cakes, baking cupcakes in her own kitchen. Now, soon enough, that took off, which is, a good problem to have. And she then moved into a rented space. I'm sure all those success stories, innocent smoothies, whatever other homemade products and things, started out at home before people then took them to physical locations and so on. So if you're anything like me, you want to do things right from the beginning, but as much as we can, if we can be lean, as it's called, like a lean startup, use what you already have, be a bit scrappy, and don't necessarily go out for like the full shebang from the beginning. That's obviously a good foundation, if that makes sense. So that's my first tip, is to use what you already have. Can someone watching just confirm that the tech is working okay? Because I've lost a few people, so just want to make sure that you're hearing me and seeing me okay. So the second one, and this is maybe a bit surprising, but it's to do with the other side of the equation. So it's to do with making sure that you're getting paid. And that might seem obvious. And of course, it requires that you actually have some clients. But in the UK, at least, and I think globally, to be honest, there is an issue with freelancers and people being paid late. So whatever you can do in terms of having a contract, and this is very typical, having, a 40% upfront payment, certainly if it's a new client you've never worked with before, and then having the rest payable or certain milestones further down the line. There's certainly legal recourse. In the UK, you can start charging interest, you can sue, but obviously most of us as solopreneurs, small businesses, aren't going to sue. So much better not to get ourselves into that situation in the first place. My aunt always used to say, always prioritize money in. Thank you, Amanda, for confirming. That's reassuring. So, you might be excited about working on a new product or project or whatever it is, but make sure you're sending that invoice as soon as the work's been done. Make sure you're chasing payment. I've got a client who luckily is a trusted long-term relationship in terms of an agency that I work with, but they're always late. So make sure you have the agreement up front. These are my payment terms. Make sure you send the invoice as soon as you can. Make sure you chase them. With my coaching, as you'll know if you're a client of mine, you actually pay upfront. Now you have the option to pay monthly, or you pay for the entire 3 months, year, whatever it is, and you get a big discount. But you have to have made a payment in order to start working. And that for me, is pretty straightforward. Obviously the trust is on both sides, but it's just to say that if you don't have a lot of money, you better make sure that you're getting the money that you are owed. So that's number two, make sure you're getting paid upfront potentially. And certainly with corporate clients, by the way, you should probably be asking if it's a big project that, goes over many months, you want to be asking for more payment upfront. This is an interesting one. So if you studied economics like me, replace fixed costs with variable costs. So let me explain what I mean. A fixed cost would be, let's say I could buy a house rather than rent, for example. I could buy equipment or software rather than getting on a subscription model. And the good news is most things are available now on that monthly subscription needs basis. So rather than buying something really expensive, like a $1,000 package of software that I keep forever, a few months down the line, maybe I don't need it anymore, you actually have this subscription model, which to some extent makes you pay more over time, but it does mean that you're super flexible. As soon as you have a crisis, as soon as you're not earning as much as you need to, you can reduce, you can cancel, you notice you're not using a particular piece of software, gone. Same thing with office space, right? If you really do need that physical office space, if there's several of you in the team or you have events and meetings, what can you do? Well, you can rent a co-working space on a flexible basis. You can join one of those membership clubs, for example. I was a member of one a couple of years ago, but I didn't use it very much, where they have office spaces you can use, but pay on a monthly basis, or even better, on a needs basis. So if I were to organize a workshop, I'd then go out and get some space. Probably I'd even be, again, a bit pragmatic and scrappy and see if any of my colleagues already have a space that I can use. Any of my friends maybe have a co-working space or an office. But really, again, think of those variable costs. So if you're in a situation like this, maybe even you've had a thriving, successful business, and suddenly, because you're in travel, because you're in hospitality, and whatever it is, suddenly you're not earning so much. Obviously, then you have the option to reduce everything. And that's particularly possible with a service-based business. For me, most of my costs, if I wanted to cancel everything right away, I could do that pretty soon. Now, a few things I pay for on an annual basis, just because you get a discount. But generally, it's ongoing, it's variable. And it means also that you can increase when you need it, when you grow. Let's take an example like email marketing software, right? You often get it free for the first 500 subscribers, and you pay for the next 1,000, 10,000, etc. So that's, again, quite a good model. But just think about trying not to invest in everything up front in something that you're stuck with forever. Again, maybe that professional kitchen, but you start with variable costs. Same, by the way, with a team. Rather than going straight away the full-time employee, you get a freelancer, or you use these sort of online services so you can easily fire them when you don't need them anymore. It's just making it as easy as possible for you to reduce. And what I think is interesting about this is that, for example, if I'm spending a certain money on training and learning, I can decide on a percentage, and maybe it's slightly arbitrary at the beginning. I can say, okay, I'm going to spend 2%, 5%, I don't know what that looks like, of my sales on investing in myself, investing in training. The good thing about that is, as your sales increase, as you get more income, as you get more clients, then you will also, by definition, increase your training investment accordingly. And I think that's true for everything. You might just have a total percentage for your expenses. I mentioned in the short video on Monday that when I used to work at Procter & Gamble in perfume marketing, we had a certain cost, which was the TDC, it was called, as a percentage of sales, which was the product cost. So each brand, each department had a certain percentage, and I'm making it up now, 26%, 35%, whatever it was. And you knew that that was your limit for your expenses. Again, it's impossible to say that for us. We're all such different businesses. But, after a year, I can look at my accounting software. I use Free Agent, for example. I can see my expenses. Okay, I've spent 80% of my income maybe on expenses, and maybe that's the case at the beginning. Everything basically that you're earning is going back into your business, but obviously over time you want to make sure that your sales are growing exponentially and your expenses are going to be reduced as a percentage of the total sales, if that makes sense. So let me know if this is all making sense so far. I know I'm going through very quickly. Again, I'm conscious of your time and I want to make sure you can enjoy the lovely evening. But this sort of looking at variable costs rather than fixed costs, and thinking of percentages. Again, it might be arbitrary at the beginning, and I'm happy to give you my 2 cents, but it's impossible to just say, hey, this should be 5%, this should be 10%, etc. But it's something to think about. After a year in business, maybe look at your percentages and then see, does this feel right? Or hang on a second, okay, I made $100,000 this year, but actually I spent 90,000 of that on advertising. Ew, that's not quite working, right? Amazing, thank you. Really glad that makes sense. Okay, so a couple more. One is to test before you invest. And I thought of this from two angles. So one is, and in fact, this week on the IGTV video and the podcast episode tomorrow, we're talking about validating your ideas. And that's whether it's a whole new business idea on the one hand, or if it's a new product, a new service, a new program, a course or something. Test before you invest in stuff. Again, I spoke to someone the other day who was saying, yeah, I've got this, I've done this course, and I'm going to get obviously the professional microphone and the video, the ring light, and I'm going to get the studio stuff, and I'm going to get a professional photographer and videographer, and I'm going to get this membership site plugin and this email marketing software and their webinar software and so on. And you're doing that before you have any idea if anybody is going to buy your course, if you're going to get a single client. Now, not to be negative, because I'm sure you will get clients, but maybe when you're just starting out, you want to test your idea. So maybe I might, and again, I would encourage you to listen to the podcast episode tomorrow, I might put a post on my LinkedIn saying, hi, I've got 3 slots open to help freelancers do XYZ, send me a message if you're interested. If I get a deluge of people picking up on that just post, or like a free resource maybe, or a little video or something, you see the downloads, then that's a really good sign. If I hear nothing, even though I've posted about something for days and weeks, then probably the need isn't there. The same with anything, right? So that could be a video or a lead magnet or a course or something. But you want to make sure that there is an audience need there before you invest in all the tools. Now, I have to hold my hand up and say that I do like doing things right from the beginning. That's partly a personality thing. And I did invest in certain tools, and I can talk about those, but I invested in an email marketing tool at the beginning and a scheduling software because I was doing so much back and forth with people, and I felt that saved me the time and I got it set up from the beginning. So that is a possibility. However, when you only have a handful of clients, a handful of people on your list, you can do things pretty manually. You can just have people's email and Google Drive, as long as you're doing everything GDPR and privacy compliant and legal and so on. You can send emails manually. You can, just have a, hey, message me and I'll send you the PDF, rather than having a complex sales page. It's, again, the lean startup model. It sounds odd, and as a perfectionist, as someone who comes from a big brand, big budget, everything's going to look perfect and seamless perspective, it can feel quite at odds. But it's just thinking, you know what, you don't actually need a website even. And again, I come from a digital marketing background. I can chat to Amanda and Shannon here on Facebook. I can have conversations with people on LinkedIn, and without actually having a fancy website and email marketing and webinar software. I can do Facebook Live without any software. I'm literally, okay, I do have my webcam now because my external screen doesn't have a built-in camera, but you can see what I mean. You can do a lot of things before. And then if you have the really bad problem of thousands of people wanting your document or wanting to join your course, then, hey, fantastic, I can go off and buy this software. But there's no need to do that before you've even started. Membership sites, I looked into so many different course plugins and all sorts of software. In the end, I've gone for a pretty simple structure that works really well, I think, and I could do something fancier, certificates and quizzes and all sorts, but for now, library of content using pages and posts, and it works really well. So it's just thinking, what do I really need in order to execute this? So that's on the side of sort of creating things, but the other one is, in fact, about things like software or a course or working with a coach. Again, you can try before you buy, and that's the amazing benefit these days. Pretty much any software now will offer you a free trial. So I like to try, or they give you a $1 a month trial or something. Get on there, have a go at creating some videos with it, see if you use it. I did it for Adobe Audition to see if I could try and I could train a freelancer to edit my podcasts. I realized I could not up to the standard I wanted. And so I went back to outsourcing the episodes to a professional. So it's good to try that out and then to cancel it before you start paying the massive fee. The same thing if it's, some membership sites and courses will give you a free trial month, or at least you can do it and then you can cancel. Working with a coach, for me, the benefit for you of watching my training sessions, listening to my podcast, reading my content and so on, and in fact getting on a free call with me, is that you get to find out what I'm about. Do you like my style? Do you learn from what I'm saying? Do you believe I could help you get the results you want? Way before you start paying me. When I first started, I had a couple of very brave clients who signed up with me before they knew anything about me. But generally, people are going to want to get to know you, like you, and trust you, as we've talked about many times, and take that opportunity. By all means, invest in the right coach for you, the right program, course, whatever it is, or software. Just make sure that you really have done your due diligence, that you've really tested, that you have explored before you buy. And the good news is there are so many opportunities now to do that. And the final one is a little bit sort of just basic maths, really. Just keep an eye on your numbers. So, for example, not to make things too complicated, but let's say I'm running Facebook ads that get me calls that then get me clients. You can work out mathematically, okay, how much do I have to spend on an ad in order to get a client? And so let's say I have to spend, I don't know, $100 to get 10 people to sign up to my lead magnet. And out of those, 3 people book a call, and out of those, 1 person buys. That means I spent $100 to get 1 client. Now, if my product or service costs $50, that's not so good because I've paid twice as much as that client will pay me. If my client is going to be paying me $500 a month for 12 months or beyond, then hey, I can pay way more than $100, right? Probably I can pay even perhaps $500. That's up to me to decide. But it's just doing a bit of the maths of thinking, okay, this is an investment if it's in advertising, for example, in particular, or even if it is in a course or a program or something, this is going to help me do X, Y, Z. And so that's going to be worthwhile. So just, if I don't know how fun you enjoy doing numbers and finances, some of you more than others. I know Paratia's an accountant, so she'll probably be the pro there. But just playing around with the numbers a little bit is always good. I'm going to have a sip of water because I'm getting a bit thirsty and the hay fever is kicking in. I've been talking all day as well. So again, see, as promised, I've already almost come to the half hour and I have a few more things I wanted to say. So just a few ideas, and let me know if there are any questions so far, and then I want to dig in just to a couple of examples. And again, if you're watching the replay, I know you haven't had a chance to ask me questions live, so do just pop your questions in the comments and tag me, and I'll be sure to come back tomorrow or the next day to respond. Use what you already have. Make sure you're getting paid upfront if possible. Replace your fixed costs with variable costs. Test before you invest, and keep an eye on your numbers. So again, what's it going to cost you to get a client? And that's why, of course, membership programs and ongoing subscription models are interesting, because the lifetime value of a client is going to be much more. If you're just doing a course for $50, again, it's going to cost you a lot to get that client, the new client, each and every time. You're going to have a lot of churn, as it's called, and you need lots and lots more clients. So a few specific areas, and again, throw examples at me. I want to talk through, in fact, I've even talked through some of these already, so I can go through very quickly. Software and tools, outsourcing, I know that was something a couple of you were asking about, and then coaching and courses. So software and tools, I think I've already said this. A lot can be done manually at the start, and I'm happy to share, again, which software I used. I have a long sort of list of every tool I've ever used within my membership site. But for specifically, I did get Response, which was the email marketing tool I used and still use, and Schedule Once it's called, which is my scheduling software. If you're a coach or a consultant or someone who has a lot of calls back and forth, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, Gina, how are you? Let's do a call. Oh, I can't do next week. Can you do this one? So with Schedule Once, there's lots of other alternatives like Acuity and so on. Somebody can just pop on, hey, these are my 3 proposed times. It's already live, shared with my calendar, so they can see when I'm available and not, and then I'll just choose one of those, and it all happens seamlessly. So a lot can be done manually at the start. You can then invest when you grow. However, maybe, and this is the balance always, a couple of tools will really save you time and perhaps even money. So for me, the scheduling obviously really saved me time, and maybe the email too. If you have a big list, it's going to be a lot of manual effort to keep those emails to be legally compliant with all the privacy requirements as well. So maybe email software would be interesting. But again, it comes down to your strategy, right? What you don't want to end up doing is invest in email software, webinar software, podcasting software, whatever else. You want to choose one thing. And then later on, when I started, in fact, I think blogging and email was the basic. Then maybe I started with a Facebook group, which doesn't cost money. Then I started with book, podcast, whatever. So you can really layer on. So software and tools, outsourcing is another one. And this was the one that we were talking about. So really thinking of, and in fact, I did a whole podcast episode on this, so I'll link to that as well. Generally, I'd recommend to do it sooner rather than later. And we're not talking about building a team. When I started my business, I wanted to be completely free and location independent. I didn't want anybody else's salary to be dependent on my income and vice versa. However, my perspective shifted a little bit when I realized, hang on a second, I'm never going to be able to grow and focus on the things that will make a difference if I don't outsource some things like that I'm not good at. So graphic design, maybe, certainly I can't even do it at all. Podcast editing, as I said, admin stuff, scheduling, social media posting, that kind of thing, right? So there are things that you can do at a very low cost when you start. So again, start sooner rather than later. Again, if you're a perfectionist, if you find it hard to let go of control, it can be really tricky to hand over your little baby, your business, to somebody else. Just start small, start with what you can afford, start with a trivial project. And, if you are a freelancer, I know it's not a popular site necessarily, but Fiverr.com, I have my favorite graphic designer there. I'm sure I've spent a lot of money with her now over the years. She does all my sort of 3D ebook graphics. She does worksheets for me. She did my podcast graphics. She's done all sorts. And each time it really does just cost $5, which, is pretty reasonable, I think. There are other platforms where you can get relatively cheap and slightly more expensive perhaps as well. And of course, the big one is, and I'm sure you've heard people say this before, yes, I can do everything, but does that mean I should? If I can pay someone £10 an hour, £15 an hour, even £20 an hour to do this admin thing, I can potentially work with a client and earn £250, £400, whatever that particular contract or program that you're doing could be. So you have to think, even if you're starting out low and you have an hourly rate as a freelancer of £50, again, you can afford to pay someone £10, £12 to do this scheduling or admin bit or whatever you don't enjoy, whatever takes a lot of your time and is sort of low skill, or potentially that someone else just has better skills than you, right? So again, I'll link to the episode on outsourcing, but I'd encourage you to get started sooner rather than later and to rethink it. You don't have to have a team. You don't have to employ people and have the whole complicated salary system, but you might consider certainly a virtual assistant or some kind of freelancing, and at least initially use some of these freelancer platforms. You're completely protected, contractually and so on. And at the end of the day, $5, a couple of times, I've done something and it hasn't been very good, but hey, I've lost $5, $10 and that's not the end of the world. So that's outsourcing. And again, start with what you can afford. Maybe you can get an intern who you don't have to pay at all, and then you can gradually upgrade. And then finally, the same thing with coaching and courses. So start with what you can afford. When I started out as a coach, so I trained, I think, 2014, 15, we did a lot of peer coaching, and it was called bartering. So I would coach Parisha, and she'd coach me, perhaps. Or I would coach Amanda, Amanda would coach Gina, Gina would coach Shannon, and whatever that was. Or I would coach Gina and Gina would give me shiatsu treatment in return, so you can do kind of a barter as well. So that's the coaching I started with. And I can't tell you, this is why I started doing coaching as a business, the power that came from that one first coaching relationship that I had with an unpaid, untrained, unqualified coach was absolutely incredible. The life-changing things that came out of that relationship was absolutely incredible. So I started not paying anything. And then I moved on. I happened to meet a girl at a conference where I was speaking in Greece. I really clicked with her. There was something about her. She was so confident and clear, and she just felt like she really had what I wanted. And so I started working with her. Paid a little bit more. It was a bit of a stretch, but still sort of reasonable. Ultimately, she was kind of at my level, so it was helpful, but it wasn't quite stretching me. And then the last 3-4 years, I've gone and last year I went pretty big with what I was spending with somebody. I've actually since chosen to do something else this year and invest in a few different programs, and let's see what happens next year. But all this to say that you can start by all means with a free service or something that's, you know, lower paid, maybe a barter exchange, maybe with people from your program, people you know, your network. But again, as soon as you can, you know, you want to up level, you want to stretch yourself, you want to work with someone who's a few steps ahead of you, not struggling with the same things as you are. So as and when you can, I'd really encourage you to, it's always going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but to challenge yourself and to push yourself and to work with someone who's a little bit beyond maybe what you feel comfortable with. Again, you have the opportunity to try before you buy, so don't just throw your money. I do sometimes hear people, and I had a friend saying, hey, I just want to go for this one because he's more expensive, so it feels like he's better. Not necessarily the right thing to do, just go with someone because they seem like they must be better because they're more expensive. But generally, price does tend to give you a bit of a quality indication. And by the way, it also depends on your personality. So do you want to, are you happy just dabbling, trying things, being scrappy and pragmatic? And yeah, it's going to take longer, but I'm happy to just, and I can learn all this stuff. There's so much free stuff available. And yes, it's a bit overwhelming and I'll probably make lots of mistakes, but I enjoy the process. That's one type. Or if you want to, you know what, I want to get this right from the start. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of money. So I'd much rather spend what I do have on getting it right the first time. I want to get out of this job ASAP, or I need to bring in an income as soon as possible. And so I'm going to invest in doing it right. And then I'll lean in, as they say, and work with maybe a more expensive coach or get that program that seems perfect, but I haven't quite dared to get into it. And again, start with what you can afford. But again, overall, you just need to, you will feel a little bit uncomfortable. I guess that's my overall message here. The idea is the difference between an investment and expense. Some things are just, you know, pouring out of your business, and they are just things that, you know, are costs and they're not actually contributing to your income. Some of them are maybe necessary, some less so. However, some are investments. So advertising, again, if it's working well, a Facebook ad will bring you awareness, will bring you clients, and that then is an investment rather than expense. If you're working with a course or a program that is going to ultimately help you get more clients or help you get the right mindset or help you with whatever it is you need to get to where you want to be, again, that's an investment. If you're going to hire someone, freelance, work with someone, that is again an investment because that person is then taking stuff off your plate so that you're going to generate even more income. So it is thinking about an investment versus an expense, and they are different things. And also, as my coach always used to say, we can't say, hey, I'm going to drive all the way to Yorkshire in the north of England. That's even further, Edinburgh, I don't know. And when I get there, I'm going to put petrol in the tank. So unfortunately, that's not possible. You can't wait to get to your destination and then fuel up, right? I need to first go to the petrol station now, and then I can drive. And it's a little bit the same thing with the business. I work with people generally who aren't going for, you know, VC investment and funding. And we're not talking you need millions. We're not talking premises and so on. We're generally talking online businesses, pretty DIY and so on. So it's not going to require massive investment. But again, let's face it, we do need to lean in a little bit. We do need to invest to some extent before, and to have a bit of faith before we actually see the reward coming in. So a couple of questions. Yes, tools, software, absolutely. Shannon's saying, I've been getting into learning more about workflows using a manual Excel spreadsheet for the meantime, but interesting, what tools? Oh, that's interesting. Shannon, let me message you and hear more about that because it depends on exactly what you're doing. Not sure if I have something for you, but I'll definitely have a think about it and see if there's something. Perfectionist control freak, there you go, Amanda. Learning to loosen the grip, so that's important. In fact, the Fearless Fridays, which is my career transitions interview I do every month, this month is with Corrie Jones. I was just writing up the final blurb this morning, and her big lesson from business for you, Amanda, was there is no such thing as perfect in business. If nothing else, you know, and in fact, I think next week's topic on the podcast is dealing with curveballs. We might have controlled everything. We might have a perfect vision, beautiful strategy, carefully laid plans. We have the discipline, we've got everything in order, and then boom, COVID happens, or I get a migraine, or, you know, our grandparents become sick, whatever it is. There's always, or you get pregnant, or, you know, whatever, you separate from your husband. Life throws a lot of crap at us, sometimes good stuff, sometimes bad, unexpected, almost always. Certainly even within the limited frame of business, there are so many things we can't control. What we can control is how we show up, what we do. So I can control showing up here with you, answering your questions, going live, making sure I'm staying in touch with you guys, supporting you, and then inviting you to join me as your coach in a program, whatever that might look like. What I can't control is the technology. Sometimes these things don't always work. I can do my best, but sometimes the internet or the Facebook doesn't work. I can't actually affect if you buy from me or not, because maybe you choose not to for a whole host of 150 reasons that have nothing to do with me. Maybe some have something to do with me, but generally have control over some things. Other things you're never going to be able to do anything about. So focus on what you can control, loosen your grip, definitely, Amanda, and do try to, again, start basically with all these things. Start a little bit before you're ready. Start small and then gradually sort of extend your comfort zone as you move out. So how's that? That is all I wanted to cover. I had those 5 key points. I'll go through them again. So use what you already have. Make sure you're getting paid. That's a really crucial one. And in fact, it's more important to have money coming in than it almost is to stop money going out. Now, that's not true because you don't want a leaky bucket. But once you've made sure that you're not wasting money, make sure the money's coming in. Excuse me. There's no point in saving lots of money if you're never actually going to bring in any more money, because eventually that bucket will empty out anyway. Replace fixed costs with variable costs. Test before you invest, and then keep an eye on your numbers. Again, I'm going to link to the outsourcing episode and the training on launching a business without a lot of budget. So I have gone longer than half hour that I promised. If there are any more questions, pop them in there. Thank you so much to those of you who joined me live. I do feel like I've just gone through this like a whirlwind, so apologies if I came at you really quickly. But hopefully that was insightful. And again, keep those questions coming. We can keep the conversations going. I linked to a couple of extra resources, and I will hopefully see you back here very soon. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.